Hi, everybody. I'm Todd, and I hope you're having a great day. With all the talk about systems moving over to Windows 11, I thought it'd be a good time to do an update to my how to set up a music PC or DAW PC for audio production. And this is going to be a lengthy video because I'm trying to make what I think is the most complete guide to setting up your computer for music production. So let's get right into it. Now I'm going to organize this kind of from most basic to most advanced, and we're also going to do it in section by section so it's easy to essentially set everything up. So first we're going to start in the main Windows settings. To get to there, we just go to the Windows icon, right click and go settings. And then once we're in settings, we'll start with the display area. Now for display, while there's a lot of settings in here, the only one we're really concerned about is going to be under graphics. And then beyond that, advanced graphics settings. And you'll see hardware accelerated GPU scheduling. And this on the surface sounds like it'd be a good idea, but it can cause issues with real-time audio. So we want to make sure we have that turned off. Once we're done with that, we'll go back to system. And the next thing we would look at here would be sound, except I'm going to do that in the control panel. So we'll leave that, but we will go to notifications. And in terms of notifications, all we really want to do here is make sure that do not disturb is turned on. This is going to prevent Windows from popping up notifications in the corner of the screen. This is a process that's running in the background that's an issue. And it'll also disturb you as you're working. So there's kind of a side benefit to that. So make sure you have that turned off as well. Other things we'll take a look at in a different part of this video when we go to control panel, it's going to be power. So we'll leave that for the time being. Under storage though, you should make sure you have storage sense turned off. And this is another background process in Windows that essentially is constantly optimizing your storage. And we really don't want that running in the background. A, we need our storage for audio. And B, again, it's another process that can interrupt what we're doing. So make sure you have that turned off. Once we have that done, we can go to multitasking. And the only setting I want to show here is a snap window. And this can be handy. I mean, if you use this and you snap windows into place on the screen, I've left mine on because I do, and I don't find it causes an issue. But a number of people, especially with systems that are a little bit lower powered, have experienced some improvement turning this off. So this can be one that you can turn off. It's not going to really break anything that you need for Windows. It's a convenience feature. All right, so once we have that done, next thing we're going to do in here is we're just going to go straight to gaming, and we'll go to the game bar menu, and we essentially want to make sure that we have the game bar turned off. That's really the key here. Again, if you're a gamer and you want to use this, re-enable it when you're gaming, but for real-time audio, turn that off. You also see a graphics section under here. This is just simply going to take us back to the menu we were in before where we disabled the hardware accelerated GPU. So again, you don't need to worry about that too much. And once we have that in place, the other thing you can do, a lot of people like to do, is disable Windows Update. You can pause it for a period of time, and that can, again, cause some improvements. Certainly, you don't want to be having updates running in the background while you're working. You can also set times of day when it won't work. But a lot of people just choose to pause this for periods of time. Now that's all we're going to deal with here in the main settings panel. Next, we're going to move into the Windows control panel. And to get to that, you just go to the search box and type control. Control panel should pop up, and then you'll get that on the screen. And so a few things we're going to take a look at here. First of all, and I'll just go kind of in alphabetical order. If we go into the network and sharing center, what you'll have is an option to change adapter settings. I actually have 3 Ethernet connections possible and then Wi-Fi here. But I have all of them disabled except the one Ethernet that I'm using. Networking is one of those things that really the drivers can bottleneck your system. And so if we can disable devices, that's going to be really handy. And so again, to disable and enable, all you need to do is right click on the device and it'll bring up an option to disable. And if it's already disabled, you re-enable it the same way. So that is the first thing that you want to take a look at here as far as networking is concerned. Now going back to the control panel, we also have power options. Now in the power options, I have mine running in the high performance mode. You can also make a mode called ultimate performance available with a tweak that I'll show you. But basically what we need to do is change a few settings in here. And it's pretty straightforward. I don't ever want my computer going to sleep, but I'm going to go to the advanced power settings. And when we get into that advanced power settings, a few things we want to make sure is that we're not turning off our hard disks. Also, in terms of the desktop background settings, the slideshow, I have mine available. You can disable this if you want to. It can cause some issues. I don't use a slideshow, but if you do, I disable it while you're doing real-time audio. In terms of wireless adapter settings, if you're using it, make sure you have it set to maximum performance. Chances are by default it's going to be on a power saving or a moderate power saving, so we really don't want that. Ideally speaking, better to use a cable if you can, because wireless tends to have more latency quite often than actual Ethernet adapters. But if you need to use Wi-Fi, that's fine. And unfortunately, a lot of the plugins today require you to have an active network connection to validate. So that can be an issue where in the old days, we'd quite often just disable networking altogether when we're doing this. Now, in terms of sleep, you don't want to have sleep happening, so sleep never. And allow wake timers, I have disabled. And that is, again, something running in the background. Windows is constantly checking things to see if they're going to be sending a wake signal. So we don't want to have that running. Next, under USB, the selective suspend, make sure you have that disabled as well. And then in terms of the interrupt steering settings, this is something you will not see, but I've made some changes in another control panel that I'm going to show you later on. So we won't worry about that right now. PCI Express link state power management, make sure you have that setting turned to off. And then the processor power management, again, you may not have all of these available. I will show you how to set those up in another part later on in this video, but these are important. If you do have them available, I have my minimum processor set at 10% and my maximum at 100%. I have my time check set at 5,000 milliseconds, and idle, promote, and demote are both at 95%. Some people like to set them at 100. I found 95 works fine for me. And so those are really things we want to have. A display, again, I have my display set to turn off after a couple hours. You can disable that also if you want to. So again, that's kind of power savings or power settings here. We'll do most of them again later on in this video. So beyond that, the other thing we want to take a look at here is sound, and this is a really important one. Now, this is Windows audio. And so a few things we want to make sure we take care of here. First of all, I'm just going to choose my speakers that I'm using. So my playback device, I'm going to go to Properties. And we want to make sure we have enhancements all turned off. Really important to do that. Under the Advanced tab, make sure that your sample rate is the same as what you are using if you're using an ASIO driver. And because sometimes, depending on your workflow, you might use both Windows Audio and ASIO. I do that when I'm recording these videos and I'm using OBS as well as my DAW running in the background. And you also here want to make sure that you have the exclusive mode disabled. So this allow applications is turned off. Finally, in spatial sound, make sure that's turned off as well. Those are going to be key things to take care of here. Now, while we're in this, we can also look at microphones and things. So I have a couple of different interfaces hooked up to this. My primary one is actually an RME MADI card, but I also have a Focusrite Scarlett 18920 on here that I'm actually using for the microphone that you're listening to me on now. And one of the things is in these, you can also look at them and go to Properties, and you'll see in the Advanced section here, it also has an exclusive mode, and you can turn off that allow applications. So do that for each of your input devices that you're using and also your playback devices. Now, while we're in this screen, I'm also going to click on Sounds, and this is Windows Sounds, and you want to make sure this is set at no sounds. Now, in Windows 11, the startup tone will still play, but after that, when you're in the OS, there will be no Windows sound. And this is the kind of thing where, again, every time Windows goes to play a sound, it interrupts processes that are going on, and you don't want to have that happening when you're working on any audio-related tasks. So you want to make sure you have that off. You can disable the startup sound if you want, but it's a one-time event, so it's up to you if you want to have that or not. So once you have that done, we've gone through a few of the real key things in the control panel. Now we're going to look at another couple of tweaks that are really going to help out. Now, before we get into the more advanced tweaks, we have a few device optimizations to make. So go into Device Manager here in the search box, and I'll pull it to the center of the screen so you can see it. Now, Bluetooth. If you're using Bluetooth, you may need to have it. Otherwise, I suggest you right-click on this and go Disable. Mine has enabled here because mine is already disabled. This little icon here shows that it's disabled. So if you can, get rid of that. Next, under Disk Drives, go ahead into each drive and choose Properties by right-clicking and go to Policies. Ensure that it's set for better performance and also enable write caching, but most importantly, turn off Windows write cache buffer flushing. This one here causes a lot of stuttering issues and latency issues. Go ahead and turn that off, especially if you use a lot of large sample libraries and such. This is going to really help you. Now, after that, we want to take a look at network adapters. And again, you'll see here I have ones disabled that I've previously done in the network settings. I'll go into the one that I have that's enabled here still. I'll go into properties and a couple things here. First of all, power management. Make sure that these boxes are not checked. We do not want to allow the computer to turn this off. And then we'll go into the advanced settings. What you want to look for is anything to do with energy efficiency, green networking, etc. Click on those and make sure they're turned to off. We don't want to have anything here that's, saving energy that's going to cause us to have stuttering or any kind of latency in the system. So not optimal for energy efficiency, but real-time audio and energy efficiency really don't go together very well. Next thing you want to take a look at is under system devices. There's not a whole lot you need to do here, but anything, I'll go to Thunderbolt here, for example, and I right click on that one in properties. Anything in here that has power management in the tab, make sure that this is turned off. We don't want to allow the computer to turn off the device. So just go through everything that is in your system folder here and make sure that power management is turned off. Then in terms of the universal serial bus controllers, same thing. We want to go ahead and right click on everything in this drop down menu, go to properties, power management, and ensure that those are turned off. You can also take a look at details here and see if there's anything else, but you'll see that this is something actually that we're going to get to later in the video. So just keep in mind this compliant host controller. But for now, go through this list under universal serial bus controllers, go to the power management tab and disable any of this, allow the computer to turn this off. That's going to help you a lot. And beyond that, you really haven't got a lot to do that's in here. It's pretty straightforward otherwise. So let's get on to a few more advanced tweaks. Now you see a link in the description below to download MSI utility. This is not MSI as in the video card and motherboard maker. This is message signaled interrupts. So go ahead and download it. Once you have it extracted, go ahead and right click on it and run it as an administrator. It's important to run it as min, otherwise it can't do what it needs to do. And interrupts are essentially a way that peripherals connect through your computer to your CPU. So it allows everything to communicate. And Windows, the architecture of PCs by default actually have a certain number of physical interrupts, if you will, that are in the system to use. Problem is, as time goes on and systems get more complicated, we don't have enough. And so it's like you have 1,000 people want to go through a door. If you have 10 doors, it's easier for them to go through. If you have 100 doors, it's easier for them to go through, but there's still a bottleneck. And so Microsoft came up with this idea of message signaled interrupts, and this allows us to go beyond that without creating any bottlenecks. And many things are off. The real keys in here is you want to make sure you look at your video card. So in my case, in this system, I have an RTX 5070 Ti. I make sure that MSI is enabled here and I leave it as undefined. There'd be a few other things in here that you want to have, particularly anything drive related like NVMe controllers you want to have enabled and you want on high priority. And also it's good to have your USBs enabled here as well. So any kind of USB host controllers should be enabled. Really the only things I don't like to enable here actually are sound cards. So you'll see here that my RME MADI card is not set. I want this using a regular interrupt. And this is through a lot of experimentation and trial and error, and I've determined that this is the most effective way to do it. It's the same thing here in terms of running things at high versus undefined versus a normal. Some things work better in different modes, and so I've done that. For me, my Thunderbolt is good to have in the normal mode here, and my host controllers for USB, I like running in the normal mode. With some exceptions here, I have a couple different ones. This is an external one in a Thunderbolt hub, this Fresco Logic, that I have undefined. But the main thing here is to make sure your video card is set up for that so that you have MSI enabled. Once you do that, you can click on Apply, and then you're done with this. The next utility we're going to look at is called Power Settings Explorer, and again, you'll find a link for that in the description below. Once you download it and extract it, right-click on Power Settings Explorer application and also run as administrator. It's an important thing. And once you do that, it'll bring this up. I'll just bring the window down here to a more manageable size. All right, so scrolling down, we want to basically go to the power management, processor power management. And there's a few things we want to deal with. First of all, if you recall when I showed you the power settings in the control panel, I said there's a few you may not have. So we're going to look at the idle, promote, and demote thresholds. You need to scroll and find them. Unfortunately, this is not all in a wonderful alphabetic order, so it can be a little bit difficult, but let's go ahead and find them. Okay, and after a bit of scrolling, you'll see here we have idle, demote threshold, processor idle. I've clicked on it, and at the bottom you'll see the settings. Now I'm using the high performance plan, but you could be using a different plan here. If you have ultimate performance, you could have that as well. I typically recommend either high performance or ultimate. And then you just go ahead and click on this, and I've got mine set at 95. Again, some people like 100. 95 seems to work good for me. And the other thing you can do here is also make these things visible. If I just pull this aside a little bit more, you'll see that there are hidden boxes here. And I have this unchecked, and that means I can see it in my control panel. Yours may be checked, so you can uncheck it. That allows you to get to it a little more conveniently without having to go into this particular panel here. Now, the other thing you can do is also, while you're at it, do the idle promote. So this is demote. Next thing we want to do is the premote. So here it is, idle promote threshold. Again, I have mine the hidden off here so that I can see it in control panel. And once again, just go in and change this to 95, or 100 is fine here as well. The next thing we're going to take a look at here is the processor state. And looking at minimum process state, again, you can see that I have mine unhidden so that it's available in the control panel. And in my case here, I have it set to 10. I just don't want it throttling all the way down. There's another thing you can do here, and I'll just show you that setting, and that is processor idle disable. Now I have this hidden. You can also make this visible, and you'll see I have mine set to disable idle. And so again, this is just going to prevent the processor from idling down anywhere. A lot of people like to say turn off core parking. Depending which CPU you have, that can be an issue, especially if you have the X3D CPUs from AMD. You don't want to do that. But some people do like to disable the core parking. I find that I actually don't need to do it. My system is an AMD 5900X. It's not a brand new system by any means. So it has 12 physical cores, 12 logical cores. But again, there are newer systems are faster. I don't have any issue leaving the parking option enabled, but I have these other settings here preventing things from idling down. So that's another way to look at this. Now, the other thing we want to take a look at here is the processor time check interval. And it's called here processor performance time check interval. Again, I have mine unchecked here for hidden because I just want it available in the control panel. But in here, we can go down, and you want to make sure this is set to 5,000. You're likely going to have a much lower number. And what this is the processor time check. It's constantly checking for what's going on, and it's like, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? And it's not needed to be that often, and that really can slow things down. And so by expanding this to 5,000, that's going to greatly enhance that from a latency perspective. And once we've done all these things, you just need to go ahead and apply them. You'll see the apply in the bottom. Click apply, and we'll go on to the next step. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is Microsoft's Interrupt Affinity Policy tool. And again, you'll find a link to download that in the description below. And I'm just going to go ahead and right click and run that as an administrator. This again is another one where things are not in the correct order, like they're not alphabetized or anything. So it's a bit of a hassle. But the first thing we want to do is we want to make some setting changes for all our USB host controllers. And so what it's going to look like is this USB compliant host controller. And I clicked on mine, and it shows registry value for Affinity mask has unexpected type because I made some changes here. If that pops up for you, just click OK, and you want to go into set mask. And here you'll see all your CPU cores. Now, when you open this up for the first time, it's likely going to have nothing checked. And that's basically saying Windows, do whatever you want. The issue is that all these interrupts are one of the things that can cause latency. And so what I like to do is I'm starting to segregate things. I want my DAW and its processes running somewhere elsewhere on my CPU, in other words, in different cores, than processes that I know can cause stuttering, dropouts, latency. And so what I do is I'm setting this up kind of in three main segments: my USBs, my video or graphics cards, and then also my networking. And because I have a CPU with 2 threads per core, it's 12. You'll see I've got up to CPU 23 here, starting from 0. So I'm going to use the final 3, which for me is going to be 18, 19, 21, and 20, and also 22 and 23. And so for my USBs, I've decided to use 18 and 19. That again is one core, just the two threads that are on there. If you don't have a multi-threaded CPU, you may have a smaller number of them here, but the idea is the same. And so my USBs are there. Some people also will tell you to put all your USB controllers on separate cores. And you can do that, although I found I don't need to do that, and I want to keep as many open as possible for running my DAW, so I can have all kinds of plugins and virtual instruments running if I want. Plus, I also have a 64 by 64 analog I/O running out to an analog board and an outboard gear, and so I have a lot going on when I'm mixing a session, so I need to have a lot of cores available for that too. So I've got the setup here, 18 and 19 for USB. You'll click OK. It's going to say outside of expected type. You just go OK again. Now, do you want to restart? We're going to say no, because there's a lot of things to do. Nick, changes will take effect next time. That's fine. And again, another message here, outside expected value. Now, you want to scroll through here and find all of these. So all of these compliant host controllers, and you want to do the same thing. Set them all to the same cores. That's what I'm doing. And make sure you look through carefully, because it's easy to miss one. And this will vary from system to system depending on how many host controllers you have. Now, the next thing we're going to take a look at is the networking. And under networking, I'm going to lump in three things: my wired Ethernet, my Wi-Fi, and also Bluetooth. And so first one here I see is my Intel wireless Bluetooth. I'll click on that and I'll go to set mask. And here again, in my case, I've chosen to use 20 and 21 for all my network and connection related items. So I've selected those two. You may choose different cores, again, depending on your CPU. Once again, you'll go, okay, do you want to do this now? I don't want to reboot, and I'll do that later. That's all fine. Now, again, for this, you want to have Bluetooth, you want to have your Wi-Fi, and you want to have all of your Ethernet. So let's find the Wi-Fi next. So on mine, my board has integrated Intel Wi-Fi 6. Yours may be different, but go ahead and select that. Again, set mask, and set that to the same CPU cores that we use for Bluetooth. Because again, we're going to do Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and hardwired networking all in the same place. Once again, just go okay, restart now. No, I don't want to do that. And next time reboot is fine. And now we want to get our wired internet adapters. And in my case, mine has the Intel gigabit network adapters on the board. So I'm going to look at that. I'm going to go set mask. And once again, here I can change those. In my case, it's going to be the same CPU cores that I'm using here. Now, again, you may have multiples on your system like I do. You see, I have another one here. I would do the same thing with this one. I just go ahead and set the mask to the same CPU cores. Now, again, if you have external dongles, if you have other network ports, perhaps on like a USB hub or on a Thunderbolt hub docking station, you got to make sure you catch all of those. So that's our networking. And then the last thing we're going to do is look at our video. And by now, if you're trying to do this along with me, again, it would sure be nice if they were able to sort this in order. However, it's a lot of scrolling. Just make sure you take your time and don't leave anything out. And mine, of course, is the NVIDIA RTX 5070 Ti. So again, I've clicked on that. Yours will be whatever a video adapter you have. And also keep in mind, if you have multiple video cards or if you have an external one and a built-in GPU on your system, make sure you select them all. If you have extra USB dongles for displays, you want to do this for all of your display adapters. So again, set mask. I've chosen the final core here. And again, I have both the physical and logical core. So 22 and 23, you want to select those. Again, it's going to say outside of expected type. That's fine. Don't reboot now. And okay. Now, for most cases, this is going to be all I would do. However, if some people with different audio cards, so different audio interfaces, can have issues depending on how well the drivers are written. So I have a couple of interfaces connected up to this system. Now, the RME, I don't have any issues with. I don't have to make any changes with it. But sometimes one thing that you want to consider is if Focusrite, for example. And so I also have a Focusrite Scarlett plugged into this. Again, I'm using it for the audio on this video. And what you want to do with those is assign them to their own. So if you go to anything Focusrite in here, for example, I can go to Set Mask. And here I've decided to just put that on the core right before the 3 that I was just using for the video networking and USB. And so I've assigned them there. There'll be other Focusrites in here as well. So the first one was the Focusrite MIDI. This is going to be the Focusrite USB. And I've again assigned that to the same cores. So again, you would choose OK, and it'll happen after. That's fine. Not worrying about that. And then finally, there'll be a Focusrite Thunderbolt in here as well. Even if you're not using it, I recommend you assign it also. And finally, there's also what is perhaps the most important one, is the Focusrite Audio Hardware Device Driver. So you go into Set Mask and also set it up. So again, it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer on audio interfaces. Like I say, with the RME, I don't have to do anything with this. With the Focusrite, I found it actually makes a pretty big difference if I go ahead and make these settings. So once that's all set, we can just click Done. And at that point, you can reboot your computer to make those take effect. But we have a few more settings we want to update. Now for the next setting, we're going to use Microsoft PowerShell. So again, if you just go ahead and type PowerSH, you'll get PowerShell. And I want to run that as an administrator as well. And so we'll pop that up. Okay, and PowerShell looks much like Command Prompt, but it's a little different. And here what we want to do is disable threaded DPCs. Threaded DPCs are something new. It started with Windows Vista. And those of you that remember the good old days of Windows XP and not having issues with a lot of latency and stuttering, this is something that was added later on. And Microsoft themselves actually recommend for real-time applications to disable threaded DPCs. So what I have on screen here is what you need to enter. So you're going to type this in, and it's going to be exactly as what I have on screen. So again, I'll go ahead and expand this out so you can see this all in one line. And you can pause the video, you can type this in. It doesn't matter what directory this is in, you just want to type this in. You can also manually add this using regedit, but this is going to do it for you. It's very important to get this exactly correct, no typos here. And this will disable threaded DPCs. The idea here is that regular or ordinary DPCs have the ability that when they execute, they can cause everything else to pause. And so, the issue, of course, is that just that. We have DPC latency, high DPC, all of a sudden things pause, things aren't running that we need running. And so what I like to do is pop everything down here into ordinary by disabling threaded. I found this works really well overall. Again, this is something that was introduced after Vista, and you may see that there's been a number of issues with real-time audio ever since then. And it's gotten progressively worse. I will say Windows 11, I do have higher overall system DPC latency than I did in Windows 10. But with everything I'm doing in this video, I don't have any issues with it. And again, this is a bit of a long one, but I'm trying to cover everything off here. So make sure you have that set. Once that has been done, you can just go ahead and close up PowerShell. And the next thing we want to do is going to be from the command prompt. So again, in the search box, just type in command. And we want to run the command prompt as an administrator. And I'll paste in again what you want to do. So you want to enter exactly what I have in the screen here. And this is going to disable Windows Dynamic Tick. And this is another process going on in the background that can cause stuttering, poor performance in real-time audio. So again, I left it up on screen here. Make sure you type this in exactly as I have in the command prompt this time. Again, run as administrator. And once that's done, you can go ahead and close this up. Now, one of the things I've found to be very helpful in minimizing latency impact on audio performance is to be able to kind of what I call sandbox things. So in other words, as we've talked about so far, a lot of times what I can do is I can have some things run on certain cores so that they don't impact things I have running on other cores. And those other cores are going to be my audio, like my DAW. Again, for many of you, what we've done already may be enough. But in some cases, a good application to use is Process Lasso. And while you can do this in the Windows in the Task Manager, those things all revert when you go and reboot your system, whereas these things will persist. They'll be there time and time again. And in order to use this, the simplest thing is to actually have things running. So you can have your DAW running. In my case here, I've got OBS running, so I'm just going to use that. And what I'll do is I'll go into active processes and I'm going to find, my DAW, and I'm going to find things like OBS. In this case here, I'm going to do OBS Studio. And if I find OBS64.exe, now I can go ahead and right click on that. And what's going to happen is I'll look at my CPU priority. I want that set at high. Let's just go ahead and make that high. And then you'll need to click on it again and go back into Affinity and you want to go to Always and select CPU Affinity. Now you'll see here again, what I've done is I've disabled all of those cores where I have USB and I have networking and I have video drivers, my NVIDIA drivers. So those are the ones we set up using the Affinity policy tool earlier in the video. And then I also have disabled CPU 0, 1, 2, and 3. 0 and 1 tend to be the busiest on just about every system. And so if you look at latency monitor, as we will later, those are very busy. And so I have them disabled. And on my system, I also have other things going on. So I've disabled 2, 3. You don't necessarily have to do that. But so what I have here is these cores that are all checked is where OBS is going to run. And so then you just click OK. And that's going to be very useful. Now, this is available freely, Process Lasso, but also there's a paid version. If you use the paid version, you're going to have some other options that last. The demo lets you use everything. But I also, with some of these things, like to set my my I/O priority to high. So for OBS, for DAWS, I make sure that that's set on high. And also memory priority, you can have that set to normal. Normal is as high as it gets. But again, you with the free version, you won't be able to do all of these things. You can do priority and affinity. Memory priority is not going to be allowed. And I/O priority may work. I actually can't recall, but check that out. The paid version of this is very inexpensive. If you're going to use it a lot, it may be helpful for you to get that. Now, again, there's other things you can take a look at in here as well that you may want to sandbox. You'll notice I have things like, for example, I've got Adobe running on the system here, so the Creative Cloud. And I'll look at this Creative Cloud UI helper, and you'll see here that my CPU priority on this is being managed by Windows dynamically, but my Affinity is the big thing. I'll go here into the Affinity and I'll go select. And you'll see that I have that running up here in the final one as well. It's really where I have my video card. But the key is just to not have it running wherever you are having your OBS or your DAW or otherwise. So I just have it out of the way. And I also don't recommend putting it on 0 and 1. You want to have as much off of 0 and 1 as possible. And so you'll find in my case here, there's a lot of different ones for Creative Cloud I want to get and look at, make sure those are not an issue. I also have different audio related things, like I have antelope converters, and I'm not using the interface part of that. Again, it goes through my RME MADI card, but nonetheless, they're connected to my system so I can be able to make changes. So again, you'd want to do that in here with anything audio related. You can also go to all processes. It's going to show everything here, and there's going to be a lot of them running. And one of the things you're going to notice here is that I have a lot of things set up to run at CPUs that are out of the way, again, of where I have my DAW. And if this is a little bit overwhelming or mind-boggling for you, that's fine. I also do one-on-one consultations. You can book those through my website, and it's everything from setting up your PC, setting up all these kinds of settings to optimize low latency. I do recording studio consultations, so gear, DAW setup, anything that you need for your studio as well. But I can help you with OBS, anything DAW-related setup, audio interface setup, but also a lot of people like to reach out to me for custom setups here on the PC. So again, if all the settings in today's video are a little overwhelming, I can help you out on a one-on-one basis with this. So you can check that out if you want, also in the description below. And beyond everything I've showed you in this video, there are still some additional things that can be done, but I tried to create the most comprehensive list here that's going to help the vast majority of you. Again, if you have issues or you're worried about setting things up, go ahead and check into booking a consultation with me. I do everything in a customized approach that's just for you. And if you're looking for more tutorials, whether they be for your computer, DAW, setting up gear, check out one of the videos on the screen. As always, I appreciate you joining me. Have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you next time.